Well, COVID-19 boosters are becoming widely available, of course, in response to the rapid spread of Omicron. But the question is, what will this mean for workplaces and vaccine mandates, which currently only require 2 doses? For more on this, employment lawyer Lior Samfiru joins us to break down your rights. Lior, always great to see you. We appreciate this. So this is the big question, right? So right now, 2 doses is according to the vaccine mandate in many workplaces. What should employers consider when it comes to the idea of a booster shot?
Well, obviously, Anthony, we have to remember that an employer has to keep its employees safe, has to keep its customers and clients safe. So that always has to be a primary thing to consider and to take into consideration. Now, an employer is going to have to look at things such as limiting workplace access, limiting the number of people in the workplace, and perhaps even allowing employees to work from home. Now, in terms of vaccine and booster mandates, here are the 3 things I think that employers have to always keep in mind. Number 1, has there been a workplace outbreak? Is there a problem in the workplace, or has the workplace been able to operate safely as is? If there have been problems, more likely that you can impose a vaccine or a booster mandate. Number 2 is what is the nature of the workplace? In other words, are you in access with those that are immunocompromised, with elderly individuals, or is it the type of workplace where people generally work distant from each other, even work from home? And finally, and perhaps most importantly, is there a government mandate in place? If there is a government mandate requiring the employer to have vaccinations and boosters, obviously an employer has to follow. If there isn't, it's a lot more difficult for the employer to implement vaccine or booster mandates.
Okay, and maybe this depends on what jurisdiction you're in, but can employees be fired if they aren't vaccinated with a booster shot?
So this is where, again, we have to focus on government mandates. If there is no government mandates, and there's no government mandates right now for most employees, if an employee refuses to be vaccinated and as a result they're let go, and the same thing applies to boosters, they would have to get compensated. Yes, they can be let go. An employer can let someone go, but that employee is going to be owed compensation. That severance that the employee is owed can be very significant, up to 2 years' pay. So an employer does have to take that into consideration when deciding to let an employee go.
Now, forgive me, I'm going to put you on the spot here, but we've seen class action lawsuits. We've seen a number of court cases that have gone through, that continue to go through, challenging the federal mandate, for example, challenging provincial mandates. The military is still underway. So when it comes to this, and they were challenging the idea of the vaccine mandate with 2, could this open up a whole new slew of court cases and class actions?
Well, those court cases are still ongoing, and there's still going to be determinations as to whether or not these mandates that some governments have imposed are legal. What the courts have said is that it's not something that entitles an employee to an injunction, but it's not necessarily legal. That's going to be determined, and I have no doubt that we're going to see more of these court cases, especially as more employers mandate vaccines and boosters.
It's going to keep lawyers like you very busy, of course. So let's talk about sort of the return to the office. There was a lot of optimism going into this month that, look, a lot of people are now going to be able to go back to work, at least in the workplace, come January. Can employers still enforce this with the current situation?
So this is where an employer has to keep a very close attention to what the government is saying you must do. If the government is saying, yes, you are allowed to have employees at work in the workplace, as long as you take certain measures, you ensure distancing, you ensure masking, you ensure that people are vaccinated, then yes, an employer can require employees to come back to work. An employer is able to say, yes, you have to come back or else. But as long, of course, as those requirements are met. If the requirements are not met and an employer is not ensuring safety, an employee can absolutely legally refuse to come into the workplace, and that's something that they cannot be punished for.
What are your thoughts on antigen testing and a lot of places now implementing them? Can they do that? Is there an obligation to? How does that work?
That is a simple and arguably effective way to ensure safety, and it's arguably more legal than require vaccines or boosters. So I think the wide use of testing is the way to go. An employer cannot necessarily legally require a vaccine. So an alternative to that is to say, we're going to make these tests accessible to these employees. They're a less expensive way to ensure safety. So I think that is definitely the way to go.
I want to shift gears a little bit, and capacity limits being implemented once again in a lot of places like restaurants and bars, and bars rather, and you kind of wonder if this could go even further. And layoffs, and of course there are government benefits. They are available, but what should workers be aware of if they are laid off due to this?
So the main benefit that was available to employees, the Canada Recovery Benefit, is no longer available. It hasn't been available since October. So if you need to be off work, you're going to be relying on the old reliable employment insurance, EI. So that is a government benefit that's available to you right now. Now, you may have other benefits, yet sick days through the employer. Provincial governments have also imposed sick day plans, so that may apply to you. And of course, if there's a medical reason, you can also apply for disability benefits through your employer.
Lior, always great to see you. We appreciate you joining us with your expert insight. I hope you have a great and safe holiday. All the best.
Same to you.